This is an A-frame house, just two walls touching at the top to form a triangle. This is the most ancient and enduring image of a home. From tents to geometric Renaissance treatises, there are thousands of these across the United States and up and down your Instagram feed. But the truth is, this is a terrible shape for a house. It is elegantly simple though, just two main roof planes. The rafters, or the frame legs, tie into the ridge beam at the top, which runs the length of the house. At the ground, the frame legs, they usually anchor into a foundation. These are often a pier kind of foundation, which hold the floor as well. So instead of digging trenches for walls or leveling the ground for a slab, you're just drilling a few round cylinders. And then the floor of the house is suspended up in the air. Meanwhile, the ground underneath, it can stay untouched. But then back up at the roof, you would probably have collar ties that are pulling the rafters together. And then the purlins would go across the rafters in the other direction. And it's a really strong setup that you have. Any force, either from above or from the side, would have to work very hard in order to damage any kind of building like this. To enclose everything, you just apply a roof to the two long sides with the usual kind of layering system of your area and your geography. Then you cap the two short sides with the gable ends. Nowadays, these are usually glass because these surfaces, they're not carrying any of the structural load. These planes, they also sit a little bit inward from the edge of the roof line to create overhangs or eaves. Barge boards are the things that might hang down as decorative elements along those gabled edges. And an overhang might extend down the sides to exaggerate the house's triangleness. Otherwise, this is a relatively efficient use of materials, which are all flat until they're fastened together. That means they can be brought to challenging sites on a trailer. And because they're made of wood in the woods, the raw materials don't have to travel far anyway. All this adds up to such a simple kind of construction that it becomes a natural choice for first-time builders or DIYers. With common tools and fasteners, they are confronted with only a limited set of details that they have to master. Each joint is repeated and then mirrored into a symmetrical arrangement, minimizing complexity to just the bare essentials. So I am not saying that these houses have always been useless. In fact, when we began using this shape, it was for a very good reason. That's why it sprouted up independently in various parts of the world long ago, where wood was available and heavy snow and mountains made construction and life difficult. In both Switzerland and in Japan, you get an uncanny similarities between the chalet and the Gassho style house, both of which are hundreds of years old. That's also true in Nepal or Scandinavia. This, I think, is a form of convergent evolution if we want to borrow from biology, where cultures without contact come to very similar solutions to very similar problems. And that probably means it's a pretty effective solution. Enlightenment-era European thinkers tried to find a common descendant for this shape by imagining triangular wooden structures sitting on the ground made by nomadic tribes. That's how they thought humans first adapted nature into a designed and constructed environment to suit their needs. Through this logic, all of architecture evolved from here, so every house has this in its DNA. You might also connect the triangle with the first known book about architecture. It was authored by Vitruvius. The Vitruvian Man features strong triangular features. And according to the author, a good building maintains three main qualities: firmitas, unitas, and venustas, or strength, usefulness, and delight. Anyway, the A-frame as we know it today here in the US came from an Austrian that emigrated to the United States in 1914. Rudolf Schindler prototyped the Bonatti cabin, also called recreational cabin at Lake Arrowhead, where he took the vernacular Alpine form from back home and abstracted it into the kind of geometry that he had been working on for California during the 1930s and 40s. The high-altitude location receives a lot of heavy, wet snow every year, so the shape sheds all that snow while channeling views towards the water. That wooden frame is contrasted with a thick stone wall and a fireplace, which accompanies the more bespoke elements which challenge the abstraction of the A-shaped geometry. And what these do is that they offer breaks in the simple geometry and cleverly negotiate some of the inherent challenges of using it. However, from this one-off architectural experiment in a snowy climate, the A-frame began to morph into something much different. Because after it found press and a few more examples sprouted up, a newly burgeoning American leisure economy was booming around the national highway system. Within a few-hour drive, people could make it to local state parks or lakes, ski mountains, or private clubs within a weekend drive for suburban Americans who were looking to escape the doldrums of their daily lives. And by now, that A-shape had gotten so popular that magazines like Popular Mechanics or House Beautiful published DIY frame kits. Even if some heads of families were hesitant to embrace time away from being productive, the self-built aspect made the cabin morally defensible because it mixed leisure with labor. Prefab companies then, like Lindell Cedar Homes, sold tens of thousands of kits, which cost anywhere from only $5,000 to $10,000 each. And then by the late 1960s, you could find these things in all the locations a weekend trip might take you, on lake shores, in ski towns, even in desert subdivisions where snow would never touch the roof line. The middle class had the means, the time, the mobility, and the motivation to just get away, and the A-frame was central to it. And the form, it even spelled into corporate branding, where IHOP's signature A-frame restaurants turned the geometry into a logo for international leisure. It's a building type and a cultural phenomenon that became shorthand for escape, no matter the destination. But this popularity was built on a pretty shaky foundation, because A-frames, well, they make pretty terrible houses. So let's say someone inside of an A-frame house wants to hang up a picture. Where would it go? All the walls lean inward, and that picture would just dangle down, where it certainly hit you on the head and would inevitably fall onto the floor. The walls, if you could even call them that, they all angle inward at a slope that is dependent on the height of your ridge beam. That slope, it causes a lot of headaches. Beyond the literal headache of hitting your head on it, if your ridge beam is, say, 5 meters or 15 feet high, as much as 50% of your floor area is basically inaccessible to you just by virtue of the geometry. No sofas, bookshelves, wardrobes, nothing could ever make use of this space. So, all of the square footage numbers of the floor plan are inflated by about twice in a house like this. Not only that, but about a quarter of the volume is just wasted, no matter how you slice it up. So the logical thing to do is to build a sleeping loft above, say, the kitchen and the bathroom area. Well, it's definitely a compromise because you can only really stand up right in the middle, likely right where you'd want your mattress to go. Lofts also mean that you'd have to add a staircase, or to save space, a ladder. It's okay though, because the inconvenience just adds a sort of rustic charm. The other thing that you'll find up here is a harsh lesson in acoustics. You know megaphones? Well, they work in reverse too. That's why the original hearing aids were cones, or the exact shape of the section of an A-frame. All the sounds from up in the bedroom are projected downward, and all the sounds from downstairs are focused right up into the bedroom. So by now, you've come to terms with the fact that you're conditioning about 25% more air than necessary just due to the shape of your home. But have you considered the fact that your home is mathematically one of the worst shapes for energy efficiency due to heat loss? That's right, triangles have the most amount of surface area while they enclose the least amount of internal volume. That means all the warm air or cooled air that you've conditioned is all sitting in the exact place that you don't want it, right along the outside surface where it might escape. And if it was a kit that was shipped to you, it is probably not well insulated because it was kept lightweight for shipping. And that's a problem, because as a giant roof, it's also the most expensive surface to construct or to adapt. Speaking of adapting, if you want to adapt an A-frame, well, good luck, because where's it going to go? Are you going to stretch it or create a dormer? That's going to look kind of weird. And the shape is already perfect in complete enclosed volume, making it difficult to adapt without fighting that geometry. There's no good places for storage or places for things like ducts. I think you get the idea. So if it's so terrible, why is it so popular? Obviously, nostalgia is one of them, but I think more importantly, that triangle is simply seductive. It's essential, and it's pure and uncluttered. It's immediately legible as a kind of cartoon for a house, just a couple lines and a peak. In this way, it connects to a certain minimalist set of philosophies, or more superficially and cynically, a minimalist lifestyle brand. But they also photograph just beautifully too. That rigid geometric symmetry is set against the rugged terrain, and the interior is just a roof plane away from trees or the mountains in the background. The solidity and texture of the roof is contrasted by the transparency and the reflectivity of the glass. It's graphic and it's easy to frame and it's cozy. So yeah, they're obviously for the occasional stay and not for building a family inside of. The weekend, not the forever home. Guests can forgive them for being props for string lights and hot tubs and images curated for experiences. That might seem obvious, but I do find it curious how the most enduring, iconic, and pure shape of home is actually intolerable as a place to actually live. Yet its image is so seductive that we can't resist it. It's like a logo, like a McDonald's arch or a Nike swoosh. The A-frame is synonymous with escape, and is probably more powerful than ever. When doom-scrolling Instagram, the A-frame somehow seems to strip away the complexity and artifice of our daily lives. And in its place, it substitutes authentic, grounded materials like wood and natural views. Everything that our urban, chaotic lives just aren't. But again, it's only the image or a symbol of a house, yet it comes with a promise of authentic experience. Vitruvius called for strength, usefulness, and delight. The A-frame is strong, and it's delightful, and then its extra strength and delightfulness ends up becoming its use value. Maybe the A-frame sticks around because it shows us something about the idea of home that our boxier houses just don't. Those ones, they just disappear. They just do their job, but they're frictionless accommodations of life. They easily take on additions, remodels, and adjustments. But an A-frame, it resists all that, and it insists on its own geometry.
It insists upon itself, Lois. What?
You can't stretch it or disguise it. It's like a shape that was dropped into the landscape and doesn't really care about us at all. It's not a failed house or a container for life, it's just a triangle. That might explain why the A-frame is better at producing moments, or Instagrammable moments, than it is at accommodating our daily routines. A weekend inside feels heightened because it doesn't let you forget that you need to conform to it, because it wouldn't conform to you. But what does it say about us that the most enduring symbol of home is just the least livable home there is? So maybe we should just abolish A-frames. I think I've presented a pretty strong case already. But if you disagree, maybe we could move it down to a debate in the comment section, which, to be honest, is sort of stealing a format of the show that I've been getting into a little bit lately. It's called Abolish Everything. It's where one person gets up and argues why something like, say, the moon or A-frames should be abolished. Then a panel argues why, in fact, we need the moon or A-frames. The event is filmed in front of a live studio audience, and I think it's hilarious. It might just be my favorite original show on Nebula right now. It's thoughtful and exquisitely produced, which, of course, you'll always expect to find on Nebula. Although, when you think about it, that's pretty huge, because when you watch on Nebula, you never see an ad. And it provides a direct pipeline for you to enable creators like me to do what I love to do and what you love to see, cool videos. So if any of that sounds interesting to you at all, we just made free trials available to test things out, to get a lay of the land. Then you can choose from a wide assortment of subscription options, from monthly for $6 a month to yearly, which comes down to $5 a month, and even lifetime, which depends on how long you live. But don't forget my creator code, otherwise you won't be getting the 40% off. And for you rock stars who have already subscribed, we have gift cards for you to share the magic. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you over on Nebula.